Good morning, boys and girls. This morning, Miss B has a new book to read to you. It's called Mr. Peabody's Apple. It's one of my very favorite books. The author of this book is Madonna. Your parents would know who she is. She's a very famous singer. Mr. Peabody's Apples. Looks like if we look at this picture that they're playing what sport, boys and girls? Baseball, that's right. In the little town of Happyville, which wasn't a very big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his Little League team on a great game. They had not won the game, but no one really cared because they'd had such a great time playing. Mr. Peabody was the history teacher at the local elementary school, and in the summertime, he dedicated every Saturday to organizing baseball games with one or another school. Billy Little, who wasn't a very big boy, was one of Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After each game, he would always stay to help pick up all the balls and bats. And when they were finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy. Good job. I'll see you next Saturday." Then he would start his walk home along the main street of Happyville, which wasn't a very big street, waving hello to everyone he knew, and everyone would wave hello back. Along the way, he always passed Mr. Fruit Deli's fruit market. Here, Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Fruit Deli's fresh apples. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottoms watched with curiosity as Mr. Peabody walked with his apple. "That's strange," Tommy said to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay anyone for that apple." Tommy got on his skateboard and rushed to tell his friends. The following Saturday, Mr. Peabody's team played another game, and they lost, as usual, but no one seemed to care because they had such a good time playing. Billy picked up the balls and bats, and Mr. Peabody set off on his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew, and they waved back. Once again, he stopped outside the fruit market, picked up the shiniest apple, dropped it in his bag, and continued to walk home. Across the street, Tommy and his friends watched Mr. Peabody, and they were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody had not paid for his apple. They couldn't wait to tell all of their friends, who would tell their parents, who would tell their neighbors, who would tell their friends in the town of Happyville, which wasn't a very big town. The Saturday after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everyone was, when he saw Billy walking towards him with a sad look on his face. Boys and girls, show me your sad look. I feel sad. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. He didn't say anything at all, boys and girls. "What is it, Billy?" he asked again, but Billy didn't look up. "Everybody thinks you're a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat and scratched his head. "Who said I'm a thief, Billy?" "And what did I steal?" he asked. "Tommy and his friends said they saw you take an apple from the fruit market twice, and they said you didn't pay for it, answered Billy. Ah, said Mr. Peabody, putting his hat back on his head. Let's go and talk to Mr. Deli about it, shall we? Boys and girls, what do you think is going to happen next? Let's make a prediction. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea too. Any other predictions? Let's read and see. The next page is just a picture, and it's a picture of Billy at the baseball field. Remember, the book said that his head was down and he was the only one there. Okay, let's take a look at the next page. They walked down the main street, which wasn't a very big street, and Mr. Peabody waved to all the people he knew, but now some of them did not wave back. And some pretended they didn't even see him. They finally arrived at the fruit market. Out popped Mr. Francadelli, who said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here? Mr. Peabody, why aren't you at the game?" "There wasn't a game today," said Mr. Peabody, "and I was wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" replied Mr. Francadelli. "You pay for them every Saturday morning when you pick up your milk. You can take them whenever you like. You want the big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Boys and girls, did you make that prediction? That he maybe paid for it earlier in the day? Who knows? "I would like to take the apple, Mr. Peabody, but I have to go and find Tommy and explain everything," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house. I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. Miss B is going to stop the book there today, and I'm going to finish it tomorrow. But I want you to think, boys and girls, about a time when you witnessed something or you saw something and you thought something really bad, but you didn't really know what was going on. Just like Tommy in this book, he watched Mr. Peabody take that apple every Saturday, and he thought that he was stealing it. But in actual fact, he wasn't stealing it. He had already paid for it. Come back tomorrow and we'll read the rest of the book. Bye, boys and girls.